But football without fans is not. You play a football match without fans, you're getting it. It can be the greatest game in the world. If there are no people there to watch, it becomes nothing.
And to Johnston. Johnson. And a ball by Johnson. Larson. Oh, he's in! Henrik Larsson! That is sensational! Nakamura! He has done it! Isn't that just typical?
The game is over. The Rebels have won. Champions, that's who we are.
What's happening? Good evening. Another episode of the Jungle Gyms podcast. Today is Tuesday, 14th of February. It's Tuesday TikTok time, and we've got a full house. We've got Paddy, we've got James, and we have McGinty. Hello to all of yours. Guys, how you doing? What's happening?
I was just reminiscing about this day 11 years ago when hearts were broken across the world. When I say the world, I mean Govan. When the Rangers died. So many memories.
It's a lovely day, mate. It was a lovely day. Does it seem like 11 years ago, Paddy?
No, because I had more hair. No, I was actually in Brigton of all places when it happened that day, so it was quite amusing, shall we say? And I still remember Jim White done the announcement on Sky Sports that day, and he was like bubbling, magic.
I'm trying to remember some of the best quotes, James. I think one of them was for a Rangers fan. He said it's like being at a funeral without the coffin.
Aye, they Stuart McCall look at like going Sky bursting into tears and all that, right? That's just
see to be fair, that day did bring the world to the attention of the big house must stay open guy, who through adversity and dodging cameras everywhere because they didn't want to be seen on by the brew, managed to walk to Govan with his walking stick in hand and declare that the big house must stay open.
And on that news, let's talk about Celtic.
I'll get
the first joke. Gavin, 11 years ago, I was stuck on a back shift at our old work, taking the piss out of the cream buns around. Guys, let us know your memories, where you were when the news broke of their death. If you plunge, we have got 11 years ago, my wife was in tears as I couldn't buy her a teddy bear as they became extinct. Tragic. Yes. Aye, guys, so bring in your comments about that memorable day 11 years ago. Guys, I'm sure we've not forgotten. I hope I've not forgotten. It's also Valentines today. I hope you did the necessary. I was going to go out and buy a bunch of flowers, but she asked me where I was going. I said, I'm going to buy some flowers for you. She says, nah, I can't be asked. Don't buy them. Save your money. She's a keeper.
She is a goalkeeper.
I wish. Talking about goalkeepers. Barkas.
Oh, here we go.
Shall we start
straight into it?
Shall we start with Barkas?
Yes, why not?
Right, okay. So it was, fuck knows how the guy is in the headlines. Maybe someone can tell me, but I brought along the topic, the larger topic of the loan players that we've got outstanding right now, and would you take any back? However, it appears that Utrecht, the managing director of Utrecht, which is where Barkas is out on loan, he admitted that they cannot afford him. I don't know if that means the actual wages of him or the actual transfer fee. Remind me how many years the guy has got left. It's at least 1 year, perhaps 2 years on his contract. But it appears that Barkas will be returning back to Parkhead unless we can find a suitor for him. James, going to come to you on this one. Would you take Barkas back?
No, I would accept ginger bottles for Barkas. I don't care how well he does at Utrecht or anywhere. Not a chance. He's done absolutely nothing to deserve another chance. In that West Ham pre-season friendly, that one goal, I think it was Mikel Antonio that scored where he's away for a pie or whatever he's doing. That'll live long in the memory. That's when I think of Barkas. He could go and win the Champions League with whoever he goes to, and that's the one thing I'll always remember about him. So nope, never, not a chance.
McGinty, there are some keepers who have tragic days and it changes their career forever. It kind of reminds me of that guy, was it Karius for Liverpool in the Champions League final, where he made an absolute cunt of it. And he had to basically flee the country because they knew that his Liverpool career was over. On a lesser scale, Barkas made a cunt of it as well, but more than one game. Quite memorably, as James said, the West Ham game where he lost a goal at his near post, and his position was it was ridiculous. But is the writing on the wall for Barkas, or is there some sort of redemption in his story?
Unfortunately, it's a matter of time. When you look at what Celtic have on the books just now, you've got Joe Hart, who, yes, he has his moments and tendencies to drop a couple of clangers for us, but on the whole, Joe Hart is a pretty solid and pretty well-experienced goalkeeper, an adequate number one, and then some for Celtic. You've got then Siegrist, Bain, and young Toby all behind them. There's no room for Barkas. And it pains me to say this, because if you all remember about 2 years ago when we started this podcast, I defended Barkas as much as I could. His goals and his conceded goals to game ratio was actually a lot better at the time than what Scott Bain was. And yet people kept wanting to hound him out. But seeing the cold light of day, when you look back on it, it just didn't work out for him at Celtic. I think he's a decent goalkeeper in there. He's obviously done well at Athens. He's done reasonably well at Utrecht. They can't afford him, so be it. But at Celtic, he just didn't have the bottle, didn't have the voice in him to make it a success. And I don't think there's any place for him left now, unfortunately.
And one perspective here for Jamie Young, I think Celtic want $2 million for him. That's why Utrecht can't afford him. Paddy, it does kind of remind us that he is a financial asset at the end of the day. However, sometimes it's best to cut your losses. What would you do with Barkas before we actually move on to the other players who are exiled?
I'd probably stick the Nottingham, Gav. No, seriously though, but if you hark back to before Celtic signed him, the guy played a blinder against us for EAK Athens. Then, of course, we were trying to get Fraser Forster, who knocked us back at the last minute. We went and paid $5 million for Barkas, which at the time on paper, it seemed like a great signing. I was very, very excited to see him coming into the club, but on the whole, I get it. It was only a year and a slightly wee bit longer, but that is going to be the worst goalkeeper I've ever seen at Celtic. But apart from that, I'll never, if I was to have the choice, I would never have him back at Celtic, because number one, he refused to warm up at one point, which I remember distinctly, and number two, he gave a soundbite to the press that he basically would discourage players from joining Celtic. So on that note, fuck him and his rotten fucking face. Pardon my French, James, with your wee French jumper on.
James, that is a lovely turtleneck.
Thank you, mate. It's one of the fancy ones that comes with a hood.
Oh, a snood.
Oh,
Nice,
you
man.
got me paranoid now. I'm just going to sit in the fire for the rest of it.
Good boy, good boy.
Right, okay, so we do have a bunch of loan players out. We might not be the first podcast to talk about it, but we are eager to actually go through some of the names on here. I'll tell you what I don't like. See this transfer policy of exploiting the kind of the financial, the contract loophole with the players in England, where we get them for like a snippet of their price. The only one I think it worked out for was Dembele, but there's been a large amount of players that it's not worked out for. Now, whether that builds the argument to say you shouldn't do it in the future, I think you should always keep an eye on the market. But I think we just we just take a gamble sometimes. One of the earliest ones was Ben Hutchison. I've mentioned him on the podcast before. He was one of the kind of the earliest ones where we the earliest memory of that kind of loophole example. But looking at the list right now, I don't think there's that many that we've exploited for that. We've got Liam Shaw, Urigide. They're the two that actually come to mind. But I'll go through the list. Apart from Barkas, who we've mentioned, we've got Liam Scales, we've got Montgomery, we've got Soro, we've got Urigide, Johnny Kenny, Ayeti, Liam Shaw, Mikey Johnson, Toby Oluwayemi, Ideguchi, and Ewan Otu. Don't know much about him. McGinty, any of them at all? You think there's a redemption story?
Toby, probably the only one. I know we're all going to chuckle that I keep bringing him up, but he's the only one I think that we've all heard Ange actually speak quite fondly of, and there seems to be a plan of sort to build him up for the first team. The rest of them, there's so many players in front of them. Why would they ever get a chance? And there's not many, unfortunately, getting good first team football at a good level that is going to set them up to come into the Celtic team. I think most our players out on loan, Toby aside, are in the shop window, to be honest.
How much is that Toby in the window? The one with the beautiful gloves. Sorry.
No, it's all right, mate. I've actually been struggling for nursery rhymes recently, so that's one to add to the list. Thank you, mate. Is there any that you think has got a future at Celtic, Paddy?
No.
Okay. Like, what about Liam Scales, Montgomery, Liam Shaw, Mikey Johnson?
I know the manager's spoken quite highly about Mikey Johnson, but there's no chance there. Liam Shaw and Urigide, no. All of them, I would imagine, will progress to some degree. Jetty's quite an interesting one. I don't think Ange dislikes him as such. Just don't think he was he showed enough mobility when he was playing under Ange, but he did pop up with a couple of goals, and he's doing well at Sturm Graz, so potentially Ajeti can come back in. He's never mouthed off, well, as far as I know. But other than that, there's no much there. No much. Montgomery, maybe, if he can kind of refine the position for himself. I don't know.
I don't have a comparison to previous years to see what our outgoings were for loans in previous years. But when I look at the list, it's quite a lot. Obviously, a few high-profile ones like Barkas and Ajeti come to mind, like 5 million roughly a piece, which like Frank Brennan has mentioned.
Did you mention Bolly as well?
No, I've not even mentioned Bolly. He's not
he's out on loan as well. He's still a Celtic
I forget
player.
that guy's even still a Celtic player. How?
Surely
his contract's ran out. It feels like that guy was around about 8 years ago.
What I find alarming is the amount of people we've got on loan. There's a few youngsters, but there's still people in their mid-20s and things like that, and that does kind of get me thinking: is that indicative of like the errors that we've made in the past with the transfer policy? James, do you think it's just a sign of misdealings in the past, or do you think it's just part and parcel of a football club?
I think Glennon's last season's got a lot to answer to, but I think Bolingoli is away. I think he was sold to that team in Belgium.
I've just seen that in the comments here. My apologies for.
Aye, because I've seen the list on Twitter. Looking at that list, Ayeti, I genuinely despise Ayeti. There was a game we played. No, honestly, if you thought Aaron Moy was bad, fuck me. If this guy gets a ball back in the team, there was a game we played in DE United, and we drew nothing each or one each. And it was just at the end, we were on the break, and he could have run clean through and goal and had a one-on-one, and he actually ran onto the defender, so he was marked out the game. The guy's an utter shite bag. He's got the heart of a moose, and he'll never, ever make it at any club, like a big club. So get him to fuck for starters. On the list, I don't think I agree with you what you're saying with Oyemi. I think he'll deserves a chance. He's the only one that's not really had a chance. Maybe you could make a case for Urahide. I don't think so though, but just based off nothing else other than that Real Betis game, I thought he looked excellent that night, but I don't ever see him coming back in. But just to play devil's advocate, but no, I don't see anybody at all coming in and making an impact.
Gav, I see you chuckling away there in the corner. What is your recollection of Urahide in that Betis game?
Urahide, first time I saw him, I thought he's not a football player. And that was like watching him in the flesh, where I was kind of fixated in his position. I went back home after the game, then I watched it on the TV, and you get a different perspective. But that didn't change my view. And he had a weird running style. It was like he was galloping. He actually got a bit of support from some of the Celtic fans online after that game. But no, I had my opinion made up right away after watching him in that game, and I've no shifted. He's not a Postecoglou player. He's not a Celtic player. I don't think he'll ever don the hoops again. So I'm happy to kind of die on that hill with that opinion. I'm not changing. If you were to put a gun to my head to say what one player might have a future at Celtic, I think Adam Montgomery, the fact that he's Scottish, that he's out on loan right now to a Scottish club, he's got age on his side. I think I wouldn't be surprised if he had more time with the hoops, but I think he would have to have a massive turnaround to actually forge a proper career at Celtic.
Do you think that, just talk about Montgomery, Gav, do you think that Ange would kind of keep it in the back of his mind that when he first obviously came into Celtic that he had to play Montgomery, and the wee guy wasn't brilliant by any stretch of the imagination, but he tried. Do you think Ange will remember that? You know what I mean? That when obviously he came in and the squad was down to the bare bones, that this wee fella did no bad.
Aye. I don't think you'll forget the good and the bad from Montgomery, because he wasn't shite, you know what I mean? He had a few games where he wasn't the best and maybe culpable for a goal or two here or there, but he was playing for Celtic at a difficult period where it was a massive rebuilding job for Postecoglou, and he stood up. He stood up, whether he was up to the standard at that time. But again, he was a teenager at that point. I don't know if he still is a teenager, but no, I wouldn't say that Ange is. I would like to think that Ange hasn't completely written him off. But at the same time, I think he's the most likely to have a future at Celtic. But at the same time, do I rate his chances? I don't know. 50-50. So, that's the lone players. I was wondering if there's any further comments. I don't think anyone in the comments is actually supporting. We've got Stephen Coulthard here. Montgomery might have a chance under Ange. Might. I don't even know how well he's doing it at St Johnstone. And you guys have a clue?
Couldn't tell you.
One guy I would say who came in with Urahide, Liam Shaw. Don't rate him either, man.
And by the way, they two guys were very, very highly rated by the Sheffield Wednesday support. And obviously, we saw Urahide certainly more than we did Shaw. But Shaw went on loan to Motherwell, I think it was, and I think that was a bit of a disaster. So, I mean, if you can't get into the Motherwell team, then that kind of says a lot.
Very true, mate. Very true. Right, guys. So, with the departure of Georgios Giakoumakis, that is a vacant number 7 shirt, and I wanted to get your thoughts on the tradition that we as a club have, that we place upon the number 7 shirt. First off, McGinty, do you think the number 7 shirt shouldn't always be given out easily, that it should be reserved for players of a special ilk?
Yeah, it's a shirt number that is famous within the sport, and it's almost quite famous in the wider footballing world. When you look at Celtic, you think of number 7s, you think of certain people like Jimmy Johnson and Larsson especially. I know other clubs have their famous number 7s. Some Portuguese lad called Ronaldinho or some nonsense like that. But I think at Celtic, it's definitely a shirt number that we hold fondly, and we shouldn't just give it out willy-nilly, which we have done in the past since Larsson's left us. And we've kind of like been let down as a support, almost like the number 7's kind of been not tarnished, but just kind of let down almost. It's hard to tell though when you sign a new player if they're going to do the goods for Celtic. So do you wait like we did with Scott McDonald, who eventually gets it, or do you hand it straight over to somebody, then see them fall at the first hurdle? I think the only person in the squad just now, well, the only two people who would arguably look to get it would be Jota or Kyogo. And I don't see Kyogo wanting it because he had the choice to have it and he plumped for number 8 for some reason. I would honestly, I would give it to him, but I don't think Kyogo wants it. The only other one is Jota, and he's already got number 17. Does he want to drop down to the 7? Is he going to be here longer than the rest of the season? Is it worth changing his number? Who knows? But we should reserve it. But I would never advocate that we retire a number, none of that nonsense. But I would reserve it for the special signings that are very likely to do
well. James, is number 7 just another number to you?
I was just surprised there was no shouts for Aaron Moy, Player of the Year, to get the number 7 there. But no, see, to be fair, at least in recent history, there's probably been more duds had the number 7 than there has been. McGinty says, you think of Larson, you think of Jimmy Johnson, but I mean, you look at who's had it in recent times. Like Scott McDonald was good, don't get me wrong, but you wouldn't have them anywhere near the same regard as like Larson and Johnson. Robbie Keane's the same, and then you're really getting into the dregs of like Chifjay, Lundberg, Miko. I can never class as a flop because of the Barcelona game. It was brilliant that night, but just in general, recently it has been more flops than kind of superstars that's had it. So, much of muchness to me, to be honest.
Paddy, I've actually got a wee list of the number 7s that we've had over the years. And with your help, and especially with the viewers as well, we're going to need your help as well. What I was hoping to do was go through the list of the number 7s, and if you can say whether the guy was a dud or whether he did justice to the number 7 jersey, put it that way. However, we're going back a number of years, so there will be some people that we haven't even witnessed playing football. We're going to have to ask the viewers to get their opinion on it. But there will be a lot of players that all 4 of us will remember, and we can definitely give our informed opinion whether the guy did a fitting tribute to number 7 or if he was indeed an empty jersey. People like Lundberg, for example. So we'll go back. Obviously, Jinky Johnson kind of started it off. I can't remember anyone preceding Jinky who wore the number 7 with such distinction. If there are any Celtic legends prior to that, like for example, Patsy Gallagher, I couldn't tell you what number Patsy Gallagher wore. I doubt Jimmy McGrory was number 7. He probably would have been an 8 or a 9 or a 10, perhaps, Jimmy McGrory. I
don't even know if they wore numbers back in the days, did they?
I don't know. How would the referee identify them? He booked them. That's a good question.
Well, Patsy Gallagher was about 2'3", so he's like, right, you, me, and you'll get that.
Right, okay, well, to the viewers, we're going to need your help on that. So obviously, Jinky Johnson, he started off this illustrious tradition of the number 7 jersey. We've got Kerry Dalglish, who I think might have inherited it from him briefly, and then it might have went back to Jinky. Could be wrong in that. But obviously, Jinky and Dalglish, fantastic players, legends of the game. So we're going to go back to, I don't know, roughly the 70s, going into the 80s. So there'll be a lot of players here that we couldn't give you much of an opinion about. But Plunge McNugget, not necessarily in chronological order here, but Davy Probin, number 7, had a beautiful perm back in the day as well. He was a winger too, unless I'm mistaken. From what I know of Davy Probin, he was a very, very useful player. Would you guys say that he's a tick or a cross to his name for the number 7?
Thumbs up.
Thumbs up. Right. To the viewers, is Davy Probin getting a thumbs up? And this is for his footballing abilities, not for his pundit abilities. Yeah, well, since Plunge has given us the name, class player, we're going to give a tick to the guy's name. Johnny Doyle.
Thumbs up.
Thumbs up indeed.
Thumbs up, even if it's only for getting sent off for hitting the referee with a ball. But no, by all accounts, very, very good player. Hard as nails. Right, so big thumbs up for him.
Did he score against, was it Madrid in a European game at Parkhead? Did he score?
I think he did, though.
Billy Stark, he was instrumental in the centenary year. I never knew he was the number 7 until I actually Googled it and I saw him wearing that top. Billy Stark, I think he was only with Celtic for a few years.
Oh, you just get a thumbs up. No doubt.
Nostalgia does wonderful things. Joe Miller.
Aye, thumbs up.
Joe
Thumbs
Miller.
up.
He played in that centenary year as well, didn't he?
Mm-hmm. Cup final. Legend.
My ex-teammate. Played a game at Parkhead. Generally played a game at Parkhead with him, a charity thing. It was fucking sound.
Here's Hugh Jameson. Johnny Doyle and George McCluskey scored against Madrid.
Cheers, Hugh.
Okay. This might be a debatable one. Stuart Slater.
Fucking bin.
Yeah.
I was actually funny you mentioned. I was actually talking to one of the older patrons in the bar, and they were talking about Stuart Slater. Says he was an absolute, for want of a better word, a tadger, attitude-wise. So, do the bit.
We got him going for Aston Villa. Was he a big money signing, and he was just a bit of a flop?
Was it no West Ham?
West Ham, aye. Claret and blue. Yeah. Paul Byrne. He scored a famous goal at Ibrox.
Yeah, well, that's a thumbs up right away then.
Did you see him? He was on the podcast for the Unrestricted View, but he hit his fucking tap off, man. Don't know what he was thinking. Paul Byrne. You guys might remember this one, Pat McGinley. I'm going to give
thumbs
him
up.
No.
Thumbs up. If you're on the fence, give him a thumbs up.
Well, if we don't give him a thumbs up, we'll give him a pat in the back.
Oh, did someone give Stuart Slater a thumbs up? Aye. Oh, that's a middle finger. That's a
middle.
That's somebody that's only got 4 fingers.
Right. D.I. Canio.
Oh, pass.
I mean, again, judging only on the playing things and not the personality as a pundit or as a fascist, then just a thumbs up for Canio.
Man, the guy was caviar. Although I read in Giakoumakis' autobiography, he said that under Tommy Burns, we were becoming a right good team, fast football. However, whenever we signed the Canio in Tommy Burns' second season, or perhaps it was his third, he said at that point he was too much of a maverick and he slowed the play down, and we kind of lost that kind of flow about us. Quite an interesting point, and that's coming from one of his teammates. And Gary Melrose, can he put the fascism to one side? An interesting one. How did people view Di Canio? Did they bring the politics into it? Simon Donnelly.
I like Donnelly, but thumbs down as a player.
Listen, he wasn't a bad player for Celtic. He just didn't rise to the heights that was maybe expected. So I'll give him a thumbs up in that respect. He wasn't a bad player.
I feel like we should be maybe stipulating more what deserves a thumbs up. Being an alright guy and a decent player, or actually living up to the standards of the number 7 shirt, which would be your Larsons and Junkies.
And he
I wouldn't
stop
put Simon
Sen.
Donald up there.
Nah,
He
it was-
did,
he
but I
was-
wouldn't put him up there.
Well, there you go. There's what they saying. The 97, 98 season played well, and he did. He just, as I say, he didn't rise to certain heights. He was always seen as the next big thing, this and that. So in that respect, he was decent as a player in his own right. But thumbs up, Sid, Psycho Sid, come on.
I was a big fan of him when I was growing up. Right, okay, this might not have been chronological order. I'm going to go for Scott McDonald. For me, I don't care about the past. Well, we're talking about the past, of course. I'm going to be a pure hypocrite here. But for me, Scott McDonald was a thumbs up. I know what he did against us, but he was just being a footballer. Like, what do you expect? He was a professional.
Aye.
Scott McDonald, I thought he was a very useful player. James?
Thumbs up all day long. No, it was shocking the way that he was allowed to leave as well, because he left the exact same day that Robbie Keane signed, and it was just like kind of essentially get snuck out the back door. And I don't know, I thought it was a bit harsh. I always liked Scott McDonald. He's a moany wee bastard, right enough, but I always liked him.
I'm gonna give him a thumbs down, only because he played his best football as number 27.
When he signed, was he number 7?
Nope.
No.
Nope.
No, but as I
27.
was saying earlier, we gave him 7 after 3 years he got it.
2, I think.
As long as I was 2.
Maybe one.
So
One
he
or two,
got it
anyway.
eventually. It was one of those ones where you wait and see somebody like Scott McDonald, who by that point had proven that he was a good quality striker for us. So you give him at number 7, it's almost like a safe handing over. I don't think many players would want to do that. I think most players would probably be here for 2-3 years, have their number, then by the time you suggest having a number 7, they're probably halfway out the door anyway.
I've got to agree here with Forever Never Celtic. If Pat McGinley gets a thumbs up, it's a low bar, boys. So no offence to Pat McGinley, but it's across the young name. You didn't do enough. Okay, Scott McDonald. What's the general consensus? Yeah, thumbs up for McDonald, aye? Coffee
Go
Paddy?
for it, aye.
Right, cool. Paddy Roberts, so he started off as whatever number, and I think
27
we got
again.
him, and then we got him back for a second spell. He was number 7, but that was an injury-prone time. James, Paddy Roberts.
I liked him, but nah, no for me. I wouldn't. As we say, talk about number 7, kind of best in the team and all that. I don't know, the second kind of spell when he was number 7, it felt as if he was fucking injured all the time. Nah, I'm giving him a thumbs down. I liked him as a player, but in terms of number 7, I'm giving him a thumbs down.
Boys?
Gotta agree with James, and I think it has to be. I think we have to really start thinking of it as not just you're a nice player, you're a good player. We all like Paddy Roberts. We all want him to do well, but did he live up to the number 7 hype? No, really. He had the talent to maybe be that player, but nah, he never quite lived up to it. The injuries were too much.
Aye. We need to be tough here, boys. So, Paddy Roberts, aye. Brought some happy memories, but as a number 7, no, you couldn't do it justice. This boy was fucking pissed. And Nadir Chifty, fuck's sake, man.
And that is exactly why we shouldn't just hand it out willy-nilly.
Now, if memory serves correctly here, bearing in mind I'm getting on in years now, did Shifty not come in and basically demand the number 7? It says that he was going to make the Celtic supporters forget about Henry Larsson or something along the lines.
Who it was? Oh,
I think it was, aye. But no, he was a Tadger.
Where's he now?
Selling fake watches somewhere.
Exactly.
The absolute arrogance, man. One of the most arrogant statements I've heard from a footballer, an ex-Celtic footballer, when they used Henrik in a sentence was for Derek Reardon or Riordan, however you want to call it. And they did that. Riordan did an interview with the Open Goal podcast with Simon Ferry. And Reardon just rated himself so highly with his goal scoring ability, and he said that if he was played every game, then he would have surpassed Henrik Larsson's goal scoring exploits for Celtic. He actually said that with a straight face because he rated himself so highly.
I would like to see the stat that potentially might back that up. Keep in mind, he was out the game so long and so many times with us. I think Strachan it was that did comment that he was the most natural goal scorer in the squad at the time. I wouldn't be surprised to find out that his minutes to goal ratio or games to goal ratio was probably quite high because he did seem like a good goal scorer, but at no chance is a Derek Ryden ever going to be compared to Henrik Larsson other than a manipulated stat because he didn't play enough games sort of thing. Not a chance. If he was anywhere near half the talent of Larsson, he would have had the career they just had.
McGinty, go and do me a favour. Go and Google what number Henri Camara was, will you? Because I think
27, mate. 27.
27, right.
No,
Sorry.
did Henri Camara no come in? Was he no next number 7 after Larsson? Or did he just come in as a new striker after Larsson?
No, we got him to replace Henrik Larsson. He came in for Wolves on loan, but I think they paid like $1.5 million for the loan. But I'm sure as well he was another one that says that he was going to make the fans forget Henrik Larsson. And by the way, one of the things I read as well, it was between him and Robert Earnshaw who was going to be the player to come in and replace Henrik.
Yeah, that will always frustrate me because Robert Earnshaw, we had the money to buy him on a permanent contract, and for his level and for domestic level in Scotland, he would have done the business up here. But instead we paid like 3 million or 1.5 million, I think it was, for a year's loan for Henri Camara, and it was just the wrong signing. I think that was one of the things that Martin O'Neill was guilty of, was going for the kind of the Hollywood signings. But I think the better move, the better money was for Robbie Earnshaw. Right, another weird signing, and of course, James, you mentioned him earlier on. He played in that very, very famous night at Parkhead against Barcelona. You said he had a good game as well. I can't even remember his performance, but Miku.
Very good game.
I'm giving him a pass. Fraser Forster aside, Miku was man of the match that night. He was absolutely brilliant. So for that and absolutely nothing else, I'm giving him a pass.
McGinty, as much as he did well that night, I think that's preposterous to give the man a thumbs up. What's your opinions on Miku?
Thumbs down. Again, that one night aside, if we use things like that, then you have to say that Tony Watt is a Celtic hero. Absolute legend, you know.
Legend.
No offense, Tony. If you want to come on the podcast, Tony, and defend yourself, then on you come. Nah. There's a few players who do get a thumbs up, but no Miku.
Well, I'm going to say something to counter that, McGinty. Some of the best thumbs up have came for one night stands. So.
It's Valentines Day. Right,
I get back and watch that game, man. It was fucking excellent against Barcelona that night.
It was.
Okay, another Hollywood signing from Martin O'Neill, which did not work out well, and perhaps we could get your opinions, your takes as to why it didn't work out well. Juninho, Paddy?
Easy. This one, mate. This one's very, very easy. Because at the point that Martin O'Neill had signed Juninho, I think we'd reverted to a flat 4-4-2. A guy had went to right back and he tried to kind of shoehorn Juninho into a kind of a left winger, and it just didn't work. It just did not work. So, in that respect, Martin O'Neill totally mismanaged Juninho.
Definitely not a left winger, man. He was always the kind of the number 10. He should always be that playing in the hole. McGinty, I remember the excitement whenever we signed him because he was the first World Cup winner for Celtic, but did not work out.
First Brazilian that wasn't shite. No, disappointed.
You've been
sitting
on that one for the last 10 minutes, haven't you?
About 30 seconds. Nah, disappointed with Juninho. Absolute quality player in his day. But much like a lot of players when they come to Celtic at the twilight years almost, it doesn't quite work. But he was, and this is when my dislike for Gordon Strachan comes in, he wasn't played in his best position. The same with Tommy Gravison. We tried to shoehorn Tommy Gravison into a 4-4-2 when he plays best in a three-man midfield. If you sign a player like Tommy Gravison or Juninho, you have to practically build the squad around them. You play them in the best, most natural position. You play everybody else around to make him awesome. You don't say, "Oh, you're really good. Let's put you up in the left wing and hope that you can do it there," because they're really good, but they're really good for a certain attribute. Tommy Gravison was playing as a defensive midfielder. Juninho was playing as a number 10. Don't shove him out on the wing. Pointless.
Can I just be a cunt and ask a question? Are you blaming Gordon Strachan for Juninho?
I'm not sure I understand.
What he said.
I know, it's the watch, mate.
No.
I would
again,
hope because Gordon Strachan never signed him.
Wait, who signed him?
Martin
No. Jesus Christ,
Sorry, mate. I was trying to reel you in there without having to go what here.
I can see the trap. I can see the trap.
I was like, I just want to berate Gordon Strachan. Just leave it be, man.
You need to be suspicious. A player who signs for Middlesbrough 3 times in their career, you know, it does raise eyebrows, man. But of course they won that World Cup. But he was shite.
Still quality player though.
See the guy, mind the guy Emerson that played with Middlesbrough. Mind he rocked up. Ibrox, he never played in the World Cup, did he?
No. He had international caps for Brazil, but a lot of people had international caps back then, you know.
Aye.
James Zarafsky. Do you remember him?
Yes, I like Zarafsky. Can remember this. I'm still moaning about it out to Celtic shop. Remember we had the green away top and it was a badge in the middle and like the total 90, the night tick was there, and it was yellow printing. So obviously I was younger back in the day, so I went in and my favourite player was Stan Petrov. So I went in, I was like, "Can I get Stan the Man 19 in the back yet?" So they took it round the back, came back and he says, "Can he fit Stan the Man 19 on it? There's too many letters and too many numbers." I was like, "Right, fair dues." So I just get Magic 7. 6 months later, we went out and signed Jan Vennegoor of Hesselink number 10, and that was all right. So, aye, they owe me £40 for a top.
To be fair though, if I remember right, did Celtic no have to come out and say basically that Jan Vennegoor of Hesselink's name was so long that they basically just had to make a deal and it was like it's a flat £15 to get his name and number on the back of the shirt, rather than the old individual letter was like a 50 pence or whatever it was, because otherwise nobody would ever get his name on the back of a shirt.
Did you remember when he actually made his debut, and obviously on his kit it had his full name on it, and it literally wrapped round the fucking full number. They bought me the number right now.
Let's see if I can find that actually.
So
Zarafsky, thumbs up, mate.
Good
thumbs up.
I'm not sure I understand.
Shut up, you.
Right, Paddy, Freddie Lundberg. That's an easy one, for sure.
Imposter. An imposter.
Zarafsky had the face of a 50-year-old janitor. Interesting, aye. Aye, so Freddie Lundberg, an imposter.
An imposter. A charlatan.
Yeah, a goal-scoring midfielder from the EPL, but when we signed him, he'd lost his pace and his hair. Lost mojo.
Can I just show you a couple of pictures of Jan Vennegoor?
Depends what they are.
No, dodgy picture like that. It's going to be absolutely tiny, this picture. Hold up. Where are you? Aye, so we've got Jan Vennegoor of Hesselink. When he signed for Celtic, he had to do a shot like that. We did quickly fix it, and we did actually print it in a straight line eventually. We did rectify that. If I'm quick at doing this, you'll see it like so here.
Look at that young Darren O'Day there.
So we quickly fix it there, which is all good and well. Can I just point out when he went to Hull, what the actual state of the world is that? That is a disaster and a half, if I don't say so myself.
Is that when he played for Wolves? Or was it Hull?
Hull, was it
For
not?
Hull?
Hull.
Aye, Hull.
Oh, aye.
Aye. Aye.
There's
Right,
Alan Woods is saying, get the right Dutch site, McGinty.
I've made sure I had a separate tab and a separate window opened up just for this.
Private
Fall
browser.
into that
Private
trap.
browser. We all know the script.
and Robbie Keane, a January loan signing. If
Thumbs
I'm
up.
not mistaken.
Thumbs up, all the way thumbs up.
Thumbs up.
Probably the only one since Larson who deserved to get it straight off the bat, and actually did it service.
Aye, I think everybody would agree with Robbie Keane. And of course, let's finish up. I know that we've got one more name. Prior to him, it was Nadir Chifty. I think Chifty was that bad that they left it for a few years before they gave it to another man. But the final man who took the jersey was Georges Giakoumakis. He came with a great goal scoring record, the top scorer from the Eredivisie, and he managed to kind of keep that that record in his first year at Celtic. He finished the record joint top scorer. Giakoumakis, though, I was a big fan of him. He's gone, but not forgotten. That sounds poignant. Bye. Big thumbs up for me. Giakoumakis, thought he was great. A great plan B to Kyogo, but it just never worked out for him in the long term.
There's plunge in the comments. Gav, was Bellamy number 7?
Nah, I googled that as well. Bellamy was not number 7. He was a different number. 47. Aye.
Must have been some Google search, huh?
I get distracted, mate.
47, yes, that's right.
47. Yes. One player who was always surprised never get number 7 was Aidan McGeady. I thought he's the typical type of player that you would want to give number 7 to. He ended up taking like number 46 or something. Aye.
Could have been as good as Jinky. Could have been as good as Jinky, but attitude.
Yeah.
He don't stuck
And
with
the
number
fact-
46 through his full career as well.
Mm-hmm. Well,
Was he no one of those lads who came out eventually and done the whole, well, I was a youngster, I wanted the number 10, so I added the two numbers together, 4 and 6, and then just decided I'm keeping it. A lot of the young ones, they end up keeping the number throughout their career if they stay at the same club. No? All right.
Don't know about this. The strangest number I have ever seen a player taken was a guy that was mentioned earlier on, funny enough.
Derek
Derek
Riordan.
Riordan. No, when he played with Hibs, he was number 10. And when he went back to Hibs for his second spell, he took 0-1 because 10 was unavailable.
And that's
Remember
weird. Surely that is number 1. That's goalkeeper. What the fuck?
You remember the Chilean centre forward, Zamorano? He wanted the number 9 and he took 1 and he had a wee plus 8.
Plus.
Oh, fuck, so he did. Crackpot.
Aye.
If we get a list their best number 88s as well, Giv.
Surely can it be along the list?
Is it 2 we've got for that? Gary Hooper?
2, Juranovic or Hooper.
Oh, 3, Kouassi was 88 as well.
Was he?
Was Juranovic 88?
Who the fuck's Kouassi?
Kouassi, Eboué.
Eboué.
Was Juranovic
I was
88?
being sarcastic.
Right, okay, so
Fuck.
been through the number 7s. The people who got cross marks to their name: Pat McGinley, Stuart Slater, Paddy Roberts, Nadir Chifty, Miku, Juninho, and Lundberg. Everybody else got ticks, and that would be Billy Stark, Davy Provan, Johnny Doyle, Joe Miller, Paul Byrne. I don't know why Paul Byrne got a tick, by the way. Simon Donnelly, DeCanio, Giakoumakis, McDonald, Zaravsky, Robbie Keane, Jinky, Dalglish, and of course, Henrik Larsson. Moving on, guys, but sticking with Georgios Giakoumakis. He made the comments after leaving, some would say, a parting shot at the SPL, and he accused the standard of our league to be subpar in comparison to other leagues. He said that the majority of teams that we face park the bus. Let us know if you agree or disagree. Do you think it was rude? Were you offended? Was it a cheap shot, or would you actually agree with him? Me personally, I'm not triggered by that. I think it was fair. Paddy, what do you think?
Spot on. As much as some people could take that as an offence, that's a fact. It's an absolute fact.
Turtleneck, what do you reckon?
Oh, fuck, I'm looking in the comments. I'm like, who's Turtleneck? No, I agree with him. He's just told the truth, isn't he? He's not said anything wrong, and it's pretty much what we say week in, week out. Teams just come and park the bus, and you just said it like it is, really, isn't he?
Craig White Legend is saying, and yet he couldn't hold down a starting place.
I mean, yeah, he couldn't hold down a starting place, but his competition was Kyogo, who scored 9 goals in 11 games since the restart after the World Cup. I mean, are we really begrudging the guy?
Well, I get Craig's statement there, but on the other hand, what's that going to do with the price of cheese? Because fucking, and I don't mean that disrespectfully, you mate, but like a third-rate player could come out say that.
Paddy's getting all digital on us there.
Celtic.
Paddy, your internet is bad. I remember
a little bit woeful.
I remember Chaduri, after he left, he made a parting shot to say that the league was pish. But I think he was including himself within that lot as well, because he was pretty crap. Giakoumakis, I think he's earned the right to say that. He bagged a lot of goals for us, and he was a bit of a fan favourite as well. I've got no qualms with him, Paddy. Sorry to make your internet was cracking up a wee bit, but I think you were defending Giakoumakis.
I wasn't defending him as such. I'm just saying, like, the fact that he was second choice hasn't really got much bearing on the fact that he's right. Most teams do come and park the bus against Celtic. They try to play. I don't want to say anti-football, but they try and frustrate rather than try and play football. So that's what it is.
I think the difference for what he said to what, I mean, we've had some real diddies, like you're saying, leave and kind of have a parting shot, and he's not had a shot at Celtic, and he's not even said that the league's easy. He's just stating the way teams play, which you can't disagree with him. Don't get me wrong, St Mirren came and kind of played a bit at the weekend there, but for the most part, it is just 10 men behind the ball and hope for the best. So I don't think you can really state a case against him, to be honest with what he said.
Completely agree, James. And I think that's exactly what he's done is a little bit different from other players who have left, where it's some players leave and make a parting dig at the whole setup and basically say, I was too good for Celtic. He's not said that at all. He's basically came out and says, look, I know I'm a good player. I'm hungry for goals. It was hard to score sometimes because of the defensive way they all set up, but I'm here at Atalanta. I'm going to score goals because it's going to be more competitive. It's going to be a more open game. He's 100% right. We've said it for decades. We come up against two park buses every time we play any other team that's not fighting for a European spot. Even then, most of them park the bus as well. He said nothing wrong, and he said it with a bit of respect.
It was the same, similar to last year. I mind they came out and they said that we were the best team in the league and they thought we'd win the league and all that. At the time, obviously, the media and all that was up Marnes, but again, he never said anything wrong. Aye.
Yeah.
Well, would you want your player to come out and say, by the way, nah, listen, we're shite. I don't think they're going to win the league.
Exactly. But he's went away. He's no badmouthed the club. He's not entirely badmouthed the league. He just went, I'm too good for it. He's not done that. He's openly and honestly says, look, that league in Scotland is far too defensive. It's hard for anybody to score, and yet he still scored a barrel load. And he's basically told his new club and new fans, I'm going to be here to score loads more. The proof will be in the pudding for him if he does score a shitload of goals in America. But that's for him to decide later on.
That's his business.
Paddy, it kind of leads on to a wider topic, a wider subject, and we have spoken about it recently on the podcast. We kind of reminisced about back in the 80s when you had a strong Aberdeen and a strong Dundee United. And even briefly in the noughties, well, for part of the season, you had the strong Hearts as well, who managed to split Celtic and Rangers. But in general, the competition is very, very poor. And it's understandable to hear players making those comments whenever they leave. And it's understandable to hear about the motivations of Celtic managers who went on to other leagues and they get to test themselves a wee bit more. Obviously, with us in our league, you know, you've got Sevco, and then the other challenge would be Europe and try to get trebles. But a lot of it can be considered as Groundhog Day for some people, for some professionals. But they would prefer that competition that you get in other countries. So the wider subject is, of course, if Celtic did ever have that opportunity, the conversation never seems to go away. It does kind of rear its head every couple of years. I think the Celtic board have said that they would be open to the idea. However, it does kind of raise that subject of, are you open to change? Or are you a stickler for tradition? James, where do you sit on this? Look, so, for example, we've got the topic of the European Super League 2.0. And with this, there might be a wee bit more meritocracy where you could get perhaps relegated, promoted, where it's not just a set club, a set amount of teams are invited and it's a closed shop. I think if there's more sporting integrity, then it might be more palatable to some people. But where do you sit? Would you always like to be operating in the Scottish League, or would you be open to something like a European Super League?
Nah, I'd be interested. I'd like to hear it. See, to be fair though, like the European Super League are certainly the way it was when they kind of floated the idea a couple of years ago with your Real Madrids and the like. It wasn't a case of Real Madrid leaving Spain. It was essentially a replacement for the Champions League, but the leagues then came out and said you can't play in the league. Essentially, you'd be banned. So it would be interesting to see how the SPL would, or whatever it goes by these days, or the SFA, sorry, how they would kind of cope with it if we did sound it out. I would be interested because, I don't know, we've said for ages, like the league is poor. There's no two ways about it. The league is poor. It feels as if every season we're saying that everybody else is improving. And I mean, you look at you could probably even include Hearts in it this year for the majority. But it's utter dross. Hearts obviously were the standout last year. This year they're probably going to be again, but not looking as convincing. So I would be interested to hear. All the teams in Scotland are forever saying that they don't need Celtic and Rangers and the money and things like that, whilst they have empty stadiums but keep cutting their allocations and things like that. So two sides to it, but I would be very interested to hear, basically hear what the offer would be.
Again, there was a lot of backlash that was during the height of lockdown. We spoke about it in detail. And a lot of the clubs had to go backpedaling back to their fans to get accepted back and apologise. But if it's reshaped, would you be open to it as a Celtic fan?
I'd be open to it, but it depends on exactly what it's going to be. And I was trying to read into this version of it the last few days. And I think it is, as James was kind of saying, that it's not that it's replacing our domestic league. And it's not that it's going to run in parallel with the UEFA competitions. It's actually something that they're trying to plan to actually go against UEFA. And I think that's where UEFA and the leagues are getting themselves right up in a tizzy about it. It makes no difference to the leagues if there's a pathway for the league winners to go into a European competition that may be UEFA sanctioned, or it may be this new corporation sanctioned as a Super League. Now, if you go into a relegation promotion and it's not a fixed, 20-team situation, which was what was mooted last year about it, and it seemed like a very close job. I think now they're looking at maybe 80 clubs coming into it, and that's where perhaps we get mentioned into it as well. Then it changes how you look at it a little bit. But I think it would need the leagues to basically decide, do we favour UEFA as an organisation, or do we favour whatever this new organisation is? And will that benefit everybody one and the same? It's a big change, but it's trying to prove a point that UEFA shouldn't have a monopoly over this. For me personally, whether the biggest crowds are going to be, whether the biggest money is going to be, because we need more. I actually was watching a YouTube video the other day that I think came out about a year ago, and it's by the guys over at Tifo Football. They do lots of great quality kind of 5-minute, 10-minute YouTube videos. Usually a lot of it's kind of cartoon drawn, and it's like the history of Venezia, just because you're wearing the shirt they have, or the history of Spanish football, Brazilian football, whatever. And they kind of portray it quite well and kind of go through some good talking points and some good history. But they did a live version, and it was quite interesting that about a year ago, I think it was, and they were posed the question of, does anybody think that in Scottish football, somebody else within the next 10 years could win the league outside of Celtic or Rangers? And they decided to break it down, and I'll try not to bore or prolong this too much, but they broke it down in a comparison to the EPL, where you've got Man City and Liverpool who get this amount of money, and then comparatively, Man United sits here, Arsenal sits here, Everton, and it's a nice, smooth, kind of gradual, but they all sit here or here, so it's in between. It's nice and smooth if you look at it on a graph of how much money they spend. But if you look at the Scottish football version, it's like Celtic and Rangers sit up here, Celtic at the top quite clearly, Rangers next, and then when you see where Aberdeen is, it's all the way keep going down there. And when you then take that and extrapolate it out to the comparisons of what the English Football League are, it's honestly like 400 times, like what Celtic have comparatively to Aberdeen is like 400 times more than what Liverpool have over Everton, for talking sake. And it's like, there's absolutely no chance. And there's no chance in hell that the wages that we spend, the transfer fees that we can spend compared to Aberdeen or Motherwell or United or whoever, there's no chance in hell over a season that these guys are ever going to win. So for me personally, I would look to leave Scottish football, not for our benefit, not for their benefit, but just because it's of no benefit to anybody that we stay here any longer than we have to.
Something needs to be done. Decade after decade, with the same lack of competition, the product is getting more and more stale. James, I don't know if there's anything that you want to add to that. There's a comment here for Frank Brennan. He said, like it or not, but the facts are only ever that Sky money is quite literally propping up the whole of Scottish football, and if they ever pulled the plug, the whole fragile pack of cards would collapse. I think Celtic and Rangers, or Celtic and Sevco, they can survive without the Sky money because it's not that much, to be honest, and we can derive our income from other sources. But certainly it does help. It does help. But the rest of Scottish football rely on it far more than what we do. James, it's a stale product, and there's been some shoddy solutions to try and spicing it up, but nothing really coming to fruition.
Just even on the subject of Sky, I get, obviously, I agree with what you've said there in terms of it does prop the other clubs up, they do rely on it. But even that, it's the product in terms of Sky's presentation, it's terrible. And was it last year they even had games to spare that they never, they didn't kind of show their full allocation of games, and then they've blocked was it Sky that blocked the kind of pay-per-view for the league as well? So it's kind of cutting your nose to spite your face with Sky. There must be other options out there. I don't know. They just signed a new deal, didn't they? It was quite a long-term deal, I'm sure. So I don't know. But I would be interested. I'd be interested to hear out the plans for this Super League. And then
I
it'll
think
be interesting as well if we did. Sorry to interrupt you, Gav, but if we did go ahead with it, to see if we would be banned out the league, or if we would maybe call their bluff and be allowed to stay in the league for obviously everything that we would bring.
Aye. I would actually be quite amused to see what would happen to English football if the bubble burst. You know, if the Sky money ran out for some reason or another, because the bubble's just getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And what goes up must come down at some point. I don't think it's sustainable. Their pyramid system is very, very flawed, I think, as well. It'd be entertaining to see what happened if some of the clubs got their comeuppance. But in terms of the Scottish game, fuck knows what the situation or what the solution is. But something needs to be done. But the European Super League, I would be open to the suggestion, especially if there's like competitiveness, sport and integrity, where it's not a closed shop, where there is relegation and promotion, that sort of thing. Guys, I wanted to ask you a wee question for the weekend coming up. We've got Aberdeen at home Saturday, 3:00 kickoff. Kyogo looks to be waiting for more updates. I think he's due to get a scan to determine exactly how long he might be out for. But is O ready to start up front in his place? I thought it was quite telling at the weekend that whenever Kyogo went off injured, it was Abada who came on and he reshuffled the pack to bring Maeda into the number 9 position. And O came on later on in the second half. So that told me that O is not completely match fit at this point. McGinty, would you start O?
No, I think he's more likely to go Jota, Maeda, Abada as a front three. He showed a lot of good movement, a lot of good strength. He's hungry to try and get his goals. I like what I see, and he's going to get his start soon enough. But I think come Saturday, I think it will be a case of Maeda starts, and then maybe come the 50th, 60th minute, we'll see O come on. Be that Maeda goes at left or direct replacement. But I think he'll just go for the most experienced and most ready is what Andrew will go for at the weekend.
James, whenever we did get rid of Giakoumakis, there was that possibility, that fear, that there'd be an over-reliance on Kyogo, a lot of pressure on him to deliver and also to remain fit as well. And now that time has came rather sooner than expected, where he is out. Of course, we're still waiting in the news of how long he might be out for. But is there any fear at all, or does that 9-point gap give you some reassurance that we can cope without him for a few weeks?
It gives you some reassurance, but I just feel as if you could see it coming a mile away, because we've said for weeks that we should be after another striker, and then literally it is pretty much the first game after Giakoumakis is away, Kyogo gets injured. So I think we should be okay. I think we've got enough. I would like to see O start. I'd be the opposite of Megan. I'd like to see O start and maybe get 50, 60 minutes and then come off for Maeda or Abada, hopefully when the game's won. But we should have signed another striker. I still think.
Do you think there'll be panic this weekend if we drop points?
Oh, probably. There always is, but I don't think we will drop points. I think Aberdeen are the any great shakes. I know obviously they've got Barry Robson in there now, but we should still be beating them comfortably at Parkhead.
Fair dues. Well, predictions then for this weekend. Celtic and Aberdeen, who have not been doing well since the last time we played them. In fact, the last time we played them, I was actually talking up the record of Jim Goodwin at Pittodrie, how good they had been. But after we played them, they were on a hiding to nothing. They just took a nosedive results-wise. But McGinty, predictions?
I'm going to go for 4-0. I think there's goals always in the Celtic team, and I believe that our defensive side is actually quite solid. So I'm going to go 4-0.
It's always reassuring to know that one of their better players is a Celtic Loanee. You know, it's quite good to know that we're taking a wee chink out the armour whenever we play them. James, what do you reckon?
I'm not sure the Aberdeen support would agree with you after watching them this season, but I'll go 3-0. 3-0.
3-0, okay. Oh, plunge 10-0. Is that realistic or over optimistic? I will go. I think we'll get a few goals. I'll go for a 4-0. Aye, I'll copy McGinty. 4-0. Right, guys, is there any further points that you want to bring up before we wrap it up for this evening?
Can I just nominate my ball bag of the week? And it's not a slight on the guy, because I've seen podcasts with him on and he seems a sound guy. But is it Mick Kennedy, that Darvel manager, for that team talk last night? Oh, absolutely toe curling, man. So he's a deserved winner. Him and his soldiers are deserved winners of the ball bag of the award.
And well deserved. For me, I would say baller of the week would have to be Rio Hatate, because he came on and you just saw the rise in quality of him compared to Turnbull, who he replaced 2 goals in a short period of time. So Hatate for me. McGinty, unless you would disagree with somebody else.
From a Celtic perspective over that game, I wouldn't disagree with Hatate, to be honest. That goal where it just kind of pinged out from behind his foot almost. It looked like it was just a pinging rocket. It was a beautiful goal. I think Moy deserves to be talked about in the ball bag of the week, just because last week he was really good. This week he wasn't.
This is not prearranged.
It kind of like the fall from grace. Let's see if we can get more from Moy. Although going into the game, touched very briefly. Aye, yes. But I think it's one of these things where we find out as Celtic fans, see if you play too many slow players, it just kills our game. Stop doing it, Ange. One slow player's enough. We don't need two.
I was actually praising Turnbull last week. I wouldn't go as far as praising him, but I was saying I like to have him as a squad player. But it makes me think, did we actually overpay for Turnbull? Because if you put him back in that Motherwell team, he'd be the best in the squad. But in the Celtic team, he's far off it in terms of command in a starting place. We thought he was one of the bright up-and-coming talents in Scottish football, but he's good enough to be a squad player, in my opinion. But in terms of whenever you put him in, you see the golfing quality between him and O'Reilly. Even Hatate, I think there's a bigger golfing quality. Moy, far more experience. McGregor, of course not. There's no comparison. I think Turnbull is way off it in terms of quality compared to his peers in the Celtic team. But at the same time, I'm still happy with him being a squad player, if that makes sense. Whenever we're playing the rest of the shite teams in the SPL. But it shows you the gulf, between us, the quality that we've got and the quality in the other teams in the SPL. But I agree, I lack of pace. Moy, he's not a fast player, of course not. McGregor's good at what he does, but he's not a speedster either. And Turnbull, nah, he has got no pace whatsoever. Right, guys, shall we wrap it up for tonight? By the way, to the viewers, thank you very much for tuning in. If you've not done so already, can you please hit that like button? And we'll be back for a post-match review on Saturday against Aberdeen. Guys, any final parting comments before we finish up for tonight? No, that's fair enough.
No.
Right. Well, thanks again, guys. I appreciate it. We'll see you on Saturday.
Yes, thank you very much. Take care.